All right, so I'm going to do a review on the King 1050 tilting head mortiser. You'll notice my head is tilted as well. But anyway, this is not going to be a warm and fuzzy review on a machine that somebody gave me for nothing. This is going to be a real world review on a 5 or 10-year-old machine under working conditions, and stick with me and you'll find out what I think. Now this machine here is a used machine. I'm not sure how old it is, but you know, in some cases I think reviewing an older machine is better than a brand new machine, because you know, the brand new tends to work really well right out of the box. But this one here has been ridden pretty hard, this old horse. And I had to clean it up, and I had to change some handles on it to get it working properly. And I did a video on how to mortise railings for metal balusters, and I'll put a link to that video here. But I just thought, if you're a small shop carpenter like I am, whether you're a hobby carpenter or a professional, this is a good machine because it doesn't take up a lot of space in your shop. And if you follow my channel, you'll know that I've got a lot going on in here, and I don't have room for a stationary honking big mortiser. So if you were maybe a door builder or a furniture maker and you had a bigger shop, maybe you'd want to get a larger mortiser. But this one here, I can pick it up and I can move it and put it away and then take it out again, clamp it to my bench, and away I go. So the machine comes with a number of hollow chisels from 1/4 inch right up to 5/8. What's neat about this machine is that it's actually got a tilting head on it. So I can tilt this head and do mortises into a rake railing on a set of stairs, for example. And there's not a lot of machines that can do that, as far as I know. There is another one that I'm aware of. It's called a bullet. And Spencer Lewis from Insider Carpentry has got a nice review on that one. It is also a Canadian machine like the King. It runs about $750 right now, and it's 2025, and that's in Canadian dollars. So I don't know what the duties and so on are in the US, but that's probably around a $500 machine, which is fairly affordable. Now, as I mentioned, I can move this mortiser around. It weighs 158 pounds, so you wouldn't want to carry it very far. I first heard about this mortiser from a professional carpenter also in Ontario, Canada, that uses this mortiser for exactly what I've used it for, and that is for doing square holes in railings, and especially on rake railings, where you can tilt this up to and beyond 30 degrees. Now, in my little trial here, I was able to get this machine, even though the scale just goes to 30 degrees, with my digital level box, I was able to get this machine right to about 38 degrees. And there is a way that you can adapt one of the washers on the back of the machine so that you can get it beyond 38 and into the 40 degree range. I haven't done that with this machine, at least at this point, but it can be done, and it seems like it's really a legit way to get this machine to go over 40. One of the real bonuses of this machine is that it's got a table that is movable, like most mortising machines, and it's also got a lock on it. So that holds that table steady when you're plunging into a rake railing, and there's really a tendency for that table to slide when you're putting all that pressure down on a sloped table. So that is definitely a bonus of this machine. I've got an old school workmate in my work trailer. My plan is to set this up on the workmate and see if I can plunge railings on an angle on that workmate. So I've got it attached to a piece of plywood, and it's clamped down to the workbench, and I'm probably going to beef that plywood up a little more before I try it on the workmate, just because initially I found a little bit of flex in the way I had it attached to my bench. But now I've got the clamps moved right tight up to the machine, and that seemed to make an improvement. Overall, I think this is a good machine. It's a good buy. I would say that compared to other machinery, that the King brand or the King line seems to be a more economical choice for carpenters. But that said, at least with this one, there are some things that I think could be engineered better. Now, I guess the biggest concern I would have is that you've got all these clamps and so on, but it tends to be really busy right in this area here. You can see all the different clamps for holding down the material. This is a clamp you can drop down and prevent the material from lifting. And if you've done any mortising, you'll know that when you lift up the plunging head, there's a tendency for that machine to want to lift your workpiece. So this is an advantage in that respect, but there are some limitations. I found that the handle will sometimes interfere with these wheels and clamps if you're moving the table back and forth. And you can see here that I can move this table from one position to another, which is, of course, the beauty of a mortising machine versus a drill press, where you can move that machine and do a long mortise, say you're building a piece of furniture. The specs say that the maximum plunge on the machine is over 6 inches, and that you can do a 5 3/4 inch piece, I think it is. But in my experience with a 1/2 inch bit, I can get 5 1/4. So I could definitely do the stiles on a door, for example. As long as I kept my material to 5 1/4 or less, I'd have no problem with a 1/2 inch bit. Now with the 5/8 bit, the one you get with the kit is 1 inch longer. So that would mean your max would be 4 1/4 inches. So that was one of my hesitancies when I bought this, because I thought I might want to use it for doors and furniture, which I still can. But just know that the bigger bit you're using, the less throw you have. Now, starting at the top of the machine, here is your handle, and it actually has 2 different positions. One there and one there. Now, if I was to use this machine right now, I have it on a 36-inch workbench, and it would be really kind of physically difficult to put the arm back in this hole here when it's that high on a workbench. I'm 5'10" on a good day, and that's a bit of a reach to have that handle in the back position. But if you had it on a lower bench, that would be advantageous. And one of the things that I found out is that when you plunge this handle, depending on where the table is situated, either the clamps or this wheel can interfere with the handle as you bring it down. But that can be resolved easy enough by putting it into that other position here on the spindle and lowering the machine. If you look at the base, these hold down clamps, which are really beneficial, there's 9 different places for that to work. So you have some options as far as what kind of work you're doing. The fence itself goes back on 2 clamps, one here, one here. There's 3 different grooves in the table to allow that fence to go back and forth, and that's how you adjust where you want the bit coming down on your workpiece, is by adjusting that fence. Now, one of the things I found is that I think there's a potential with the 2 different clamps here to have that fence not true to the bit. So you have to set it up carefully, and you have to do some extra measurements. This wheel here tightens this clamp to hold your workpiece against the fence, and I think it does a really good job. And the combination of these 3 clamps really holds your workpiece down solid. All right, so taking a look at the stops here, you have one for limiting the lift on the machine in case you're making a bunch of mortises down low. You don't want it to go all the way up. And then you also have one that controls the depth of the bit. so that you can, do consistent depth on each plunge. The tilting mechanism is adjusted using a 17 mil open end wrench. There's 2 bolts at the back of the machine that you loosen off, and then you can swing the machine to either side, as I mentioned, beyond 30 degrees. This lever here will lock in your mortise chisel itself, and then on each side of the machine is an access place to tighten and loosen the chuck. All right, so it looks like the whole problem with the lever interfering with these clamps is all rectified by doing 2 things. Putting the machine on a lower workbench so that you can use the handle in the rear position. And now you can see that I can plunge this right down to the table without interfering with the clamps and the wheels like it had before. So this bench here is roughly 30 inches high, and with this machine on top of that, I'm now at 36. So my bench where I did the previous work is 36 inches, so that brought the table of the machine up to about 41 inches. So I did check with King, and they sell a stand for this mortiser, which brings this table height to 35 inches, which is going to be ideal. So again, all the problems virtually are resolved by having the mortiser on a lower bench, something in around the 30-inch height. All right, so to sum everything up, would I buy this machine brand new? Yes, I would. It would all depend on how much you're going to use it, but I think a mortising machine, especially one like this, portable, and that you can move around and not take up a lot of space in your shop, is a real beneficial tool. Nice that I was able to pick one up used that's still functional, and that speaks for the durability of the machine. There is some learning curve here with learning your setup and how to position your handles and so on, so that everything is functioning properly. And mortising is just like anything, something that you have to learn. So that's the review. Let me know if you have any questions. If you enjoyed the review, give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.